Welcome back to our episode of Smooth Brain EDH. We make the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. This week, our members decided to build their decks around their favorite creature types. So let's see what they all brought to the table. Our first player today is Sam on Go-Shintai of Life's Origin. This 5-color deck is focused around shrines, playing a ton of them to the board, using the commander to turn any destroyed back to the battlefield. He starts the game with an Island, Bayou, Rogran Triome, Darksteel Mutation, Go-Shintai of Lost Wisdom, Paradox Haze, and Weaver of Harmony. Up next is Cody on Lathiss, Dragon Queen. This mono-red dragon deck is hoping to flood the board with flying threats, using Lathiss to create extra dragons with every creature in the deck. He keeps an opening hand with 2 mountains, Bonder's Enclave, Third Possibility, Spit Flame, Chain Reaction, and Terror of Mount Valus. Third is Cameron on Zask, Skittering Swarmlord. This Golgar deck is focused around insects. Gross. His opening hand is a snow-covered forest, Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, Swarmyard, Nature's Lure, Blight Beetle, Devouring Swarm, and Realmwalker. Last up is Caden on Wilhelt, the Rock Cleaver. This Dimir deck is all around zombies, sacking and reanimating them for value. He starts the game with a snow-covered island, Drowned Catacombs, Path of Ancestry, Vampiric Tutor, Blade Stitch Scab, Lord of the Undead, and Zombie Master. We're about to hop right into the game, but before that, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. We post new gameplay videos every week, so you don't want to miss any of it. Big shout out to our patrons, really appreciate all support. Link to our Patreons in the description, as well as a link to the deck lists, our social media, our Teespring store, our podcast channel, and our public Discord server. Our channel is partnered with Dragon Shield. See if you can pick up any new sleeves or match-related products. Check out our affiliate link in the description. Also partnered with Inked Gaming. See if you're looking to make any custom playmats. Use our affiliate link there as well. Now, on to the gameplay.
It looks like Cameron wins the die roll, and he starts off with a Yavimaya, and he'll pass to Caden. Caden drops Path of Ancestry and passes, Sam drops Rogran Triome and passes, and then Cody plays a Mountain and passes. Now back on Cameron's turn, he'll play a Snow Swamp, and then he'll tap for 2 to cast Nature's Lore. He finds Bayou to the battlefield untapped, and he'll use it to cast a Mortician Beetle. The turn is then passed to Caden, who will play a Snow Island. He'll then tap for 2 to cast Blade Stitch Scab, and he has a Path of Ancestry trigger, which he will keep on top. The turn is then passed to Sam, who will play his Bayou, and then he'll tap for 2 to cast Destiny Spinner, and then he'll pass to Cody, who just plays another Mountain, and he'll pass to Cameron. And Cameron plays the Soul Ring he top-decked, and then he'll play Swarmyard, and he'll tap for 3 to cast Hornet Nest, and then after that he casts his Blight Beetle, swings for 1 at Cody, and then he'll pass the turn. Caden will start his turn off with a Temple of Deceit, and he'll scry 1 to the top. The turn is then passed to Sam, who starts off with a basic island, and then he'll tap for 2 to cast Weaver of Harmony. After this, he'll swing his spinner at Caden, who takes the 3 damage, and then he'll pass. Cody will stop on Instep, though, to cast Thrill of Possibility, discarding Spit Flame. And that Spit Flame is forgot about the entire game. And while Cody was deciding on what he wanted to discard, Caden decided to go ahead and pop off his Vampiric Tutor, and it'll resolve. Now on Cody's turn, he'll play Haven of the Spirit Dragon. Then he'll tap for 3 to cast Shiny Impetus on Mortician Beetle. And then he'll pass the turn to Cameron, who will start by casting Zask. Then he'll move to combat and swing for 1 with protection from green at Sam, and then 3 at Caden, and they both take the damage, and Cody gets a treasure token. The turn is then passed to Caden, and he'll start off with his Drowned Catacomb. And then he'll tap for 4 to cast Grave Pact. After this, he moves to combat, swings for 2 at Cody, and then he'll pass the turn to Sam. Sam will shock in a Temple Garden, and then he'll tap for 4 and cast Go-Shintai. And when Go-Shintai enters the battlefield, he makes a 1/1 shrine. After this, he'll swing for 3 at Cody, and then he'll pass the turn to Cody, who starts his turn off with a Nykthos' land for turn. He'll then just play a Mind Stone and pass the turn to Cameron, who will tap for 5 and cast Gitrog Monster, and then he'll play Misty Rainforest as land for turn. He'll immediately crack it to draw a card and find an Overgrown Tomb untapped to the battlefield. And thanks to Zask letting him play lands from the graveyard and Gitrog letting him play an extra land, he'll do it again, this time finding a forest. And after this, he'll cast an Ashnod's Altar. Then he'll move to combat and swing his Mortician Beetle at Caden, making Cody another treasure, and then he'll swing his commander, Zask, at Sam, and they both just take the damage. The turn is then passed to Caden, who will immediately tap for 3 and cast Toxic Deluge, and he'll pay 6 life to it. Cameron responds by sacrificing his Mortician Beetle to Ashnod's Altar. Zask will trigger, putting Mortician Beetle to the bottom, and he'll mill Life from the Loam and Field of the Dead. And since a land hit the graveyard, Cameron draws a card. He'll then repeat the process with Hornet Nest, and then with Blight Beetle. This will allow him to put them both to the bottom and mill 4 cards. And unfortunately, Cameron is very bad about saying what goes into his graveyard in his graveyard deck. So I guess we'll find out later what's in the graveyard. And then the Toxic Deluge will resolve. The turn is then passed to Sam, and he'll start off by enchanting himself with Paradox Haze, and then he'll cast an Esper Sentinel. The turn is then passed to Cody, who plays Bonder's Enclave, and then he'll tap for 3 to cast Worn Power Stone, and then he'll pass the turn to Cameron. And yes, he does pay the 1 to Esper Sentinel. Cameron will dredge Life from the Loam on his draw step, and the only thing I can see in his graveyard that's new is Skull Clamp. He'll then cast Life from the Loam, and he will pay the 1, and he returns Takenuma, Field of the Dead, and Misty Rainforest to his hand. He'll then play the field as land for turn, and this is his 7th unique land, so he gets a zombie token from it. After this, he'll cast a Realm Walker, and his chosen type is obviously Insect, and then he'll pass the turn to Caden, who starts off with the Tainted Isle as land for turn. He'll then cast a Lord of the Undead, this will trigger Path of Ancestry, and he'll scry 1 to the bottom. And then the turn is passed to Sam, who will play a Plateau as land for turn, and then he'll cast Honden of Cleansing Fire. The turn will then be passed to Cody, who will play another mountain as land for turn, and then he'll drop Ancient Copper Dragon. The turn is then passed to Cameron, but he'll stop on end step to sacrifice his zombie to Ashnod's Altar, floating 2, then he'll pay a green to cast Skylasher off the top of his library. And then he immediately sacrifices it for 2 colorless, and then we'll tap for a black to channel Takenuma, milling 3 cards and returning Gitrog monster to his hand. He'll then move to his turn, tap for 5, and cast Gitrog. Caden decides he wants to drown in the locket though to counter it. Cameron will then play a Misty Rainforest, and then he'll immediately fetch with it for a Snow Forest. This will get him 2 zombies. And then he'll cycle Barrenmoor, and then he'll cast Azusa. He'll then play 2 more land drops, which is a Swamp and an Urborg, and it gets him 2 more zombies. He'll sacrifice one of those zombies for 2 colorless, and then he'll tap for a green and cast Masked Vandal. When it enters the battlefield, he'll exile Species Specialist from his graveyard and exile Grave Pact. And then he'll cast Mortician Beetle again off the top of his library. After this, he'll move to combat and swing for 2 at Sam, who will take the damage, and then he'll pass the turn to Caden. Caden starts off by casting Champion of the Perished, and then he'll cast that guy Wilhelt, which triggers the champion. He'll then move to combat and swing for 2 at Sam, who takes the damage, and then he'll pass the turn to Sam, who gains 2 life on both of his upkeeps. Sam will play and fetch with a Prismatic Vista for a basic forest, and then he'll tap for 6 to recast Go-Shintai, and he'll get another shrine when it enters. He'll then pass the turn, and Cody somehow gets to untap with an Ancient Copper Dragon out. He'll then tap for 6 and cast Hellkite Courser, which will put Lathiss from the command zone onto the battlefield with haste till end of turn. He'll then activate Nykthos to float 6 mana, and then an additional 1 to cast Terror of Mount Velis. This will give all of his creatures double strike till end of turn, and there's also a Lathiss trigger when it enters. After this, he'll move to combat, and he'll swing Ancient Copper Dragon at Cameron and Lathiss at Sam. They'll both take 12 damage, and since the Copper Dragon hit with Double Strike, Cody actually gets its ability twice. So with the first one, he gets a 6, and then a 9 with the second. Comical. That aside, after combat, he'll cast Crucible of Fire. An Esper Sentinel trigger is missed, and then Cody will pass the turn to Cameron, and Lathiss goes back to the command zone. Now on Cameron's turn, he'll dredge Life from a Loam, and he mills 2 lands and a Blight Beetle. He'll then cast the Loam, and Sam misses an Esper Sentinel trigger. He returns Takenuma, Misty Rainforest, and Barrenmoor, and then he'll immediately cycle Barrenmoor. After this, he plays Gaia's Cradle as land for turn, and this will get him another zombie. Then he'll play Misty Rainforest as his second land drop, and he'll fetch with it for a forest, and this will get him 2 zombies. And then he'll tap Gaia's Cradle for 10 mana. He'll then cast Zask using 7 of it, and then since he has 2 legendary creatures, he'll use one of the green and then tap a black to channel Takenuma to mill 3 cards, and you better believe he returns Gitrog monster back to his hand. Then, with the help of Zask, Soul Ring, sacrificing a zombie to Ashnod's Altar, and the 2 green he had floating, he'll cast Symbiotic Beast from the graveyard. He'll then sacrifice the Symbiotic Beast, making 4 1/1 insects, and we make a pretty decent mistake here. We are smooth brains after all. Cameron in the table thinks that Zask says May, so he puts the Symbiotic Beast to the graveyard and doesn't put it on the bottom of his library and mill 2 cards. And because of this, he's about to take a lot of game actions he shouldn't have been able to take, but luckily they don't actually end up changing the game that much. So now knowing this, we'll continue on, and he sacrifices all of his bug tokens to make 8 colorless mana and mill 8 cards. He'll then cast the Gitrog monster, and then the Symbiotic Beast from graveyard. He'll then repeat the process of sacrificing the beast and not milling off of it, and then he'll sacrifice all 4 of his insects to float 8 and mill 8. And the only notable thing that's milled here is a Dread Return, and he does mill a land, so he'll draw off Gitrog. And then he'll repeat the process. He'll use 4 colorless and tap for 2 green to recast his beast. And once the process is repeated, the only notable thing that's milled is a Hornet Queen and a Phyrexian Altar, which Cameron is now trying to find a way to get back to his hand. So he'll sacrifice 2 zombies and his Mortician Beetle to flashback Dread Return to get Hornet Queen to the battlefield. And when the beetle dies, he'll tuck it and mill 2. One was a land, so Gitrog will trigger. And then when Hornet Queen enters, he'll get his Death Touch insects, and then he'll sacrifice one to mill 2. And one of the milled cards is Balaged Recovery, which was exactly what he was trying to get to his hand. He'll then sacrifice another to mill 2, and get Roggle Trigger because he mills a land. He then remembers he has a Zusa, so he has a 3rd land drop, so he'll play Windswept Teeth, and he'll get a zombie off this. He'll then cast Scoot Swarm, and then he'll sacrifice another one of his Flying Death Touchers to mill 2, and one's a land, so he'll draw. And the card he drew is a Blood Artist, so he'll cast it. He'll then cast his Canoptech Tomb Sentinel from Graveyard that he milled earlier, and when it ETBs, he'll exile Crucible of Fire. He'll then just pass the turn to Caden. He'll play Cabal Stronghold, and then he'll immediately cast Rooftop Storm, not paying 1. And then he'll immediately free cast his Zombie Master. This will get his champion a counter. And then since all of his zombies have Swamp Walk, Caden makes a deal with Cody, saying he'll full swing at Cameron if Cody also full swings at Cameron. And they agree. So Caden will move to combat and swing for 10 Swamp Walk at Cameron. He'll then move to his end step and sacrifice Zombie Master to draw a card and make a 2/2 Decayed Zombie, and Cameron will use his Blood Artist trigger on Caden. The turn is then passed to Sam, who will gain a total of 12 life on his 2 upkeeps. Then he'll cast Go-Shintai of Lost Wisdom. This triggers his commander, then he'll move to his end step, make Cameron mill 5, and then pass. Cody starts off by sacrificing Mind Stone to draw. He'll then cast You Find Some Prisoners, choosing to exile the top 3 cards of Caden's library, and he picks one and he reveals that it's Undead Augur. But he'll then activate Nykthos for 6 mana, and he'll use 2 of it to cast Cathartic Pyre to blow up Cameron's Hornet Queen, leaving him with only 1 flying blocker. He'll then use the remaining 4 and tap for an additional 2 to cast Lathiss, and then he'll move to combat and full swing at Cameron. Before blocks, Cameron decides to start trying to sacrifice his board to gain enough life from Blood Artist to get out of this. And after he drains Cody a total of 6 times, he realizes that Cody can use Lathiss to pump up his team to make it not matter anyway, so he'll just take the damage and die. Copper Dragon makes 3 treasures, which he'll use to cast Undead Augur, and then he passes the turn to Caden, who starts off with a Dark Slick Shores. And then he'll cast a Carrion Feeder. This will trigger his champion, and then he'll activate his Lord of the Undead to return Zombie Master to his hand, and then he'll cast it, and he'll scry one to the bottom off his path, and his champion will trigger again. Caden will then move to combat, and he'll swing for 14 at Sam. But Sam will respond by casting a Teferi's Protection. Caden will then move to his end step and sacrifice his Carrion Feeder to Wilhelt to draw a card and make a 2/2. The turn is then passed to Sam, and on his 2 upkeeps, he'll gain a total of 20 life. He'll then cast Darksteel Mutation on Lathiss, and then on end step, he'll pay 1 to his Go-Shintai of Lost Wisdom to make Cody mill 5 cards. Now in Cody's turn, he'll start off by activating Nykthos for 8 mana, and he'll use 3 of it and Bonder's Enclave to draw a card. After this, he'll tap for an additional 3, and then use all of that to cast an Utvara Hellkite. He'll then cast Patron of the Arts, which has an ETB trigger, and then he'll move to combat and send everything at Sam. But Sam rolls it back to before attackers are declared, and he'll generous gift Utvara Hellkite. Sam can't block it, so he takes the full 27 damage, and Cody rolls an 18 off the Copper Dragon this time. The turn is then passed to Caden, and he'll play Phyrexian Tower. He'll then activate his Lord to get his Blade Stitch Captain back to his hand, and he'll free cast it with Rooftop Storm. And this will trigger his champion. Caden will then move to combat, and he'll swing for 22 Swamp Walk at Sam, and Sam just has to take it. Caden will then move to his end step, and he'll sacrifice Zombie Master to draw a card and make a Decayed Zombie. The turn is then passed to Sam, and he'll gain 20 between his upkeeps again. He'll then cast Sanctum of All, then play a Ganjo as land for turn. Then he'll move to his end step and pay 1 to make Cody mill 7 cards. The turn is then passed to Cody, and he'll activate Nykthos for 7 red mana. He'll then sacrifice Haven of the Spirit Dragon to get back Utvara Hellkite to hand, then activate Bonder's Enclave to draw a card, then he'll cast Metallic Mimic, naming dragons, and then he'll cast the Utvara Hellkite, which will enter with a counter. He'll then move to combat and swing all of his flyers over at Sam, and this will create 4 6/6s from the Hellkite. And then he also decides to send his Patron of the Arts at Caden, this will get him another 6/6. Sam will block the double striker with his Go-Shintai of Lost Wisdom, so he only takes 15 damage, and then Caden will take the 3. And then another 9 is rolled with the Ancient Copper Dragon. The turn is then passed to Caden, who will play a Cavern of Souls, naming Zombie. Then he'll activate his Lord to get Zombie Master again, which he'll cast for free, which will trigger his champion. And then he decides to tap for 7 and overload a Cyclonic Rift. And Cody will respond by sacrificing all of his treasures for a total of 36 mana. Caden will then attempt to move phases, so Cody loses his mana, but he'll respond by using 3 of it to cast Valakut Awakening. And he'll put 3 cards to the bottom of his library, so he gets to draw 4. He'll then move to combat and swing for 22 at Cody, and he just has to take the damage. He'll then cast a Diregraph Colossus, which enters with 1 counter, and then he'll cast Undead Augur, which triggers the Colossus. Then he'll move to his end step, and he'll sacrifice his tap zombie token to Wilhelt to draw a card and make a Decayed one. Turn is passed to Sam, and he'll cast Esper Sentinel again. He'll then Darksteel Mutation, Undead Augur. Then he'll cast Sanctum of Stonefangs and a Farseek. He finds Ketria Triumph and then passes to Cody, who will start off with a Tormenting Voice. He discards a mountain and he'll draw 2 cards. We'll then play Treasure Vault, tap for 4, and then cast Chain Reaction. This will kill everything but the Champion of the Perished, and then Wilhelt will trigger 4 times, which actually means that Chain Reaction did not save the day, because he just has to swing his champion at one person and his decayed zombies at the other, which after Chandler passes, that's exactly what he does after casting his Blade Stitch Scab. So yeah, Caden just wins here through zombie combat damage. Way to go, man. So everybody, there you have it. That is the end of our tribal video for this week. Everybody got to do some really cool things, so I really enjoyed this game, even though Cameron did technically misplay that turn. It didn't end up mattering though. But thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave us a like and subscribe and let us know what you thought down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to check out all of our links. There's a lot of them. But that's all from me today, guys. Hope you all have a smooth day.